Welcome back to the Badger247 show, part of the 247 Sports Network. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins. I can't even say my own name this morning. That's how I'm doing, guys. Joined by Badger247.com writers John McNamara, Nick Osen. It is great to see you guys, as always, here on a Football Friday in the fall. Lots of action going on, both on the college gridiron and in the high school playoffs here in Wisconsin. We'll be talking about that a little bit more later. Shout out to me for correctly calling Bayport into the Final Four, but we can talk about that a little bit later as well. The more pressing news for the Wisconsin Badgers are two big commitments this week. We will start with the first 2027 or the first known 2027 commitment, like John likes to say in his articles for the Wisconsin Badgers. That is in-state legacy tackle Ethan McIntosh. This should come as no surprise to anyone who is subscribed to Badger247, because we've been hitting at this on the boards for a while now. This recruitment for McIntosh, the son of athletic director Chris McIntosh, maybe doesn't surprise a lot of people, but he still can be, I think, an impact player at the next level.
Perko, I appreciate that. We have said, man, I think we made the crystal ball, Perko, within hours, I believe, of him getting the offer. We were of course, there and in person. I think, John, that was the day our whole team was there with Badger247. And obviously we got to see his excitement and, really just kind of the celebration. And it was just fun to kind of be able to see that, catch up with him. Then going through the process, it was like, okay, I got down to a practice and caught up with him. Obviously it seemed like things were trending this way, but he was going to go to Michigan, checked out Iowa. And I do think there was at least some level of, hey, I want to see these and, kind of see them for myself and go through this process. But obviously not just with, his dad's role, but I think Blazik, I know Pat Lambert, Casey Robach, like they did a great job of recruiting him sincerely. I was pretty deep in this one. And then it was like, finally, the Badgers get a win like they did. Obviously, on Saturday, you see him, kind of shirt off with some of the other top targets in the class. An amazing shot by our photographer, Dan Sanger. And it was like, okay, this was something that I teased over the weekend, John. And I just think going forward, Perko, look, I think Mac, actually, I remember these discussions while we were at camp together. I think he's a developmental type of guy. Like you can't teach that type of size, athleticism, those genes. All really good. Well, what I put in my story is I think you see him in the two deep within the first full 2 to 3 years. Probably 2, because I know how hard he works, but like he's not a guy that's going to play right away. But then going forward, if he can add to that frame, like we both talked about at length, continue to grow in his technique. His coach told me he's been amazing at pass setting. He's been growing in the run game, and he's become a little bit of a mauler. If he's able to do all of that really together, I believe this is a guy that has, eventual starter and potential NFL upside just at that size.
Yeah, I think you look at McIntosh, and the thing that stands out right away is that frame, right? 6'7". When we saw him in the summer, like 240 pounds. And I wrote in that camp story, he was skinny. Right. Like he was a skinny dude. Obviously, he's going to have the frame to add that weight, and he's going to get to that, probably 300, 315 range. But he was skinny in the summer, probably 260 during this year, his junior season. I got a chance to see him in his last game against Verona, but still that frame stands out to you. The potential, the future, the down the road all kind of stands out to you there. He's an athletic kid. He's a wrestler too. So obviously like that, the footwork is there. I think the strength is the biggest thing that you're going to need to see come. And going back to the summer, I wrote that he looked like way back when Riley Mahlman was started to get recruited by Wisconsin. He was 6'8" and like 220 pounds when Wisconsin started on him. They had him up when he was a freshman. I remember him coming up to a camp and some unofficials, and obviously he's filled out and went on that journey before. He was a hoops guy early on, like when he started high school. Obviously he's turned out to be a pretty good tackle for the Badgers, but that was kind of the body type that came to mind of a guy that's just going to add a bunch of weight, get a lot stronger. So you're looking, 3, 4, I don't know about 5, but 3-4 years down the road of what this guy's going to look like. And like, the
Mhm.
pedigree's there, the genes, obviously his father's an excellent tackle for the Badgers, went on to play in the NFL. So, you like all those things, but also, and then, what Nick has written about and what I've wrote about, this is a very nice piece to put in place as you attack this 27 in-state class. I think he's close with some of those guys, Loken, Cole Ryder. Not to say those guys are going to follow him quickly, but to have that guy in place to get that message across, to start to form this class. A lot of times it's a quarterback, but a lot of times it's that first in-state kid. Traditionally, over the last handful of years, going back to last 20 plus years. So having that piece, I think, is important as Wisconsin wants to move forward with Luke Fickell, with the message of what's happening. It's a nice start to that class, and a guy that I think specifically with in-state kids is going to have a little bit of a pull for the Badgers.
Yeah,
and if I can just add real quick, Perko, like Mac and I doing a little LeBron and Wade back and forth here. I think that, checking in on this really the last few weeks, right, and leading into, okay, there's going to be this stability with the class, checking in, of course, with folks around the program. I think there's also this hope, John, that we've talked about, because Mac has a pretty great personality. Like, you wouldn't, just think that he's obviously just like an NFL legacy, Badger legacy type of kid. Like, he's really just one of the guys, super affable. And I can tell you pretty comfortably that the O-line guys are all pretty good buddies. Him, Ryder, like Mac mentioned, Mallinger. I know we both feel, Mac, like an offer should be coming for Reese at some point. And then obviously Loken, I think we both recently made some picks for him to end up a Badger. So I've been saying it, and now that kind of the stability with Fickell's out there, it's a little easier to talk about. I think this could be a special in-state class. I really do. I mean, it is a special one. I believe that the vast majority of them, I'm going to say everybody, right? Flanagan's going to ND. I think Isaac Miller's probably trending other places at least right now. But a lot of those guys, I believe, will end up in Madison.
Yeah, that would be a boon for the program. I've been super high on Loken for forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, obviously had some injuries this fall and, playing at Iola Scandinavia, not exactly against the best competition, but you see all the physical tools with him, and you see all the physical tools with a lot of these offensive linemen as well. You mentioned Cole Ryder. I think he's going to be, I think for a lot of Badger fans, hopefully the next domino to fall, because he's another one who could be a really special player on the offensive line. Moving though to 2026, the Badgers flipped a running back, Spontavius Wiggins, who is really broken out his senior year. He was committed to FIU. He's been getting high major interest from Auburn and Florida State, Cincinnati, and some other schools. Nick, what does Wiggins bring to the table in terms of a skill set for Wisconsin?
Man, Mac and I kind of hit on this, Perko. Give the staff and recruiting department a lot of credit, because from my understanding, they did some pretty quick work here these last couple of weeks. And I believe Florida State and some other schools were offering some competitive dollars. So I think he's a really good add. In terms of his skill set, I thought we kind of agreed on it. And Andrew Ivins, our scouting guy, wrote similarly. Generally a one cut and go type of guy. He'll plant that foot. I think he's got good vision, but obviously what jumps out at you is that speed and kind of that straight line speed and being able to get away from traffic. So I think, I know some fans a couple of weeks ago when that offer went out were worried about Latimer. This is not a one or the other type of thing. They're hoping for both guys. I believe right now as we sit here and record, they're going to get both in this moment. And I can't think of really a better, kind of back and forth skill set, John, right? Because Amari, he's obviously fast enough. He can catch passes, but he's going to run through you. He can break tackles. And with Wiggins, he does a little bit of that, but he's kind of your plant, go, speed, thunder and lightning type of backfield. How fun could that be going forward?
Yeah, you took my wording there. A little thunder and lightning action there, and obviously that's how Wisconsin would love this class to pan out. And if you get both, you're ecstatic, right? I mean, that's a really nice running back class. But like Nick talked about, you look at the second play of his film. It is a one cut go boom shot out of a cannon type of run for him. Really good area of football in Georgia where he's from. So the competition level is without a doubt not in question. He's pretty close to Latimer too. I really like that 1-2 combination for the Badgers in this class, and really give credit to Devin Spalding for what he's done on the recruiting front to go get both of these guys in this cycle. We've talked about this, but Latimer was their top running back target for a long time, right? I mean, he was, I remember when I was starting to write about him, it's like, hey, this is their home run type of guy if they could get him, and they got Latimer. And then you get this guy at this point in the cycle. I think at first glance, a lot of people looked at Wiggins and saw he's committed to FIU. Like, what's Wisconsin doing here? Florida State made a significant push, and from the people you talk to, Florida State felt like they had that one. He comes to Wisconsin, things change. Now Wisconsin, I think that one is pretty well set, but they're going to have to hang on until December 3rd. But you look at the running back room right now. I don't have any inside info, but that running back room doesn't feel like it's going to be the exact same, right? Coming back, just there's the portal and everything that goes into it. Putting 2, I think, is appropriate in this class. And I mean, that's a really nice combination there of those two. Latimer can do a little bit of everything, but he's a big, thick dude. Like you said, Nick, he's going to run through you. And then Wiggins gives you a skill set you might not have on that 2026 roster in terms of the speed, the versatility, I think. If he can give you a little bit as a receiver too, I think that he's a really nice get at this point in the recruiting calendar.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Wisconsin is still trying to sort of finish out this 2026 class. They had, a couple other guys up this past weekend as well that they're going to be trying to add, especially there in the defensive backfield. There's definitely some guys who have, broken out as seniors. And we do see some of these guys able to, who maybe blossom a little bit later, able to come in and really do some big things and contribute early, which I know a lot of Badger fans will be hoping for here, obviously. So moving along, though, I want to talk a little bit of basketball here with you guys. Wisconsin now started out the season 3-0. So, John, what are some of the trends here that you're seeing out of this team, and how do you feel like they've handled this early part of their schedule before they get into some tougher games?
Yeah, I think they've handled it like you'd want to. They've played some opponents where I think it's 3 straight games where they were favored by 20 points or more, and they've really taken care of business there. Things will heat up quite a bit when they play BYU. I mean, that should be quite a showdown. BYU has a talented and well-paid roster, and some guys that'll play in the NBA. So I think through 3 games they've certainly handled their business. When they're scoring, they can score in a hurry. And I keep kind of coming back to it, but the pace that Nick Boyd plays with is just. It's a little bit different. That it stands out to you, right? Of the speed that he plays with, and particularly the way that he likes to get to his left hand. So it's just something that we haven't seen a lot from Wisconsin, but he certainly fits well. I think once he begins to distribute a little bit more, I mean, I think teams are going to realize what he's trying to do. He's always trying to get to his left, but he can get to the paint. Now, if that ball comes out a little bit more, you see the assists go up a little bit more, I think that'll benefit Wisconsin. But I think some post questions have been answered a little bit. Garlock is going to play this year. You saw him early, and I think he's going to eat up a lot of minutes for you. You're looking for defense. You're looking for rebounding. I don't know that you'll see the offense come around anytime soon, maybe not even this year. But in terms of the role that they need him to play, I think he's been pretty solid. Like I said, if he can go and rebound and defend, that's what Wisconsin's going to need, because they got plenty of guys that are going to be able to score the basketball. So if he can continue to, 8 to 10 minutes a game, that would be huge for this team.
Yeah, he's averaging, I think, over 11 minutes a game right now, Nick. But, going along with that post play, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is I think that Nolan Winter seems to be getting more comfortable really playing inside. We've seen him attack the boards a little bit more, and I think that could be a big key for the Badgers this season.
Yeah, Perko, I said on a show a couple weeks ago, I think he's the most important player on this team, right? Not saying he's the best necessarily or the most NBA ready, any of that, though he's in those categories too. But, man, the way that he's able to stretch the floor like we knew about, right? And like you mentioned, being a little bit more aggressive, kind of assertive, competitive on the glass. I think he's got let's count one of the preseason games. So he's got 3 double-doubles in the last 4, okay? 2 out of the first 3 official games, double-doubles. And I really couldn't be more impressed. I got to speak with him a few weeks back, and he talked about, like, look, I want to be coached. You know, I think Guard and Krabbenhoft and Steemsma, like, I think they do coach him hard. Guard even said post-game, like, yeah, he's been, better, more aggressive, but there's still room for more dominance. I think that's awesome to hear because there's no question that's a guy with an NBA ceiling, guys.
Yeah, I think that, between that, the growth of Blackwell into a more all-around player, someone who's more comfortable with the ball in his hands, there's a lot of upside here. And I think the vibes around the basketball program are pretty strong right now. That matchup against BYU is going to be really fun here a week from today. I think that
might have some live coverage from there. We'll see.
Ooh, Nick, I love to hear that. That will be good. Make sure you are subscribed to Badger247 to get that live coverage from Nick and all the great coverage we're getting from John and Payne as well. Moving forward, though, it's a Friday. We got to talk a little bit of high school football here, boys, because the Wisconsin high school football playoffs have been going on, and teams this weekend will be vying for that shot to play in Camp Randall. And we've got some really, really awesome matchups. I think the headliner there in Division I is going to be Waunakee Arrowhead because, Waunakee, I know, John, is a team that you've been really impressed with all year, and Arrowhead just continues to win. What are you looking for in that one?
Yeah, man. I mean, the 2 D1 matches, those should be some really good football games. Waunakee, obviously undefeated. Arrowhead comes in with 1 loss. Arrowhead is a really good football team coming from the best conference in the state. So obviously battle tested. Waunakee had their little scare early. They seem to recover. They're rolling right now. They got McCoy Smith taking some running back reps, the future Badger there. That has certainly paid off dividends for that. For them, that should be a great matchup. I think that's at Madison Memorial tonight. Then you go to the other side, Muskego Bayport. Yeah, Matt, you were right last week. I mean, Bayport looked tough. Their quarterback. I think Franklin went in thinking, like, we got to stop that running back. That quarterback had a great game. They connected on some big chunk plays through the air, and the running back was good too as well. So that should be a really nice battle between them and Muskego. That's a rematch of, I believe, last year's D1 final, right, where Bayport won. So big one in Oshkosh. So 2, I don't think you can go wrong with any of those 4 teams at Camp Randall coming up next weekend. And even, D2, Notre Dame, Kingston Allen is putting up video game numbers for that team. You might see him at Camp Randall. Wisconsin just offered him. And then on the other side there, West De Pere, Homestead, I believe 2, well, maybe De Pere's got a loss. I should probably figure that out before we got in here and started talking about it. But Homestead is undefeated. That's a good team. That should be a really good battle there as those D2 teams try to get to state. And then even, Catholic Memorial is a team we talk about a lot in terms of the talent that they have. They play Grafton. That should be a really great matchup there. On the other side, Reedsburg and Whitefish Bay. The Cinderella.
I was about to say that. Whitefish Bay on the Cinderella run this year.
The home of the Joe Brunners. They squeak into the playoffs, and now they got a chance to get to Madison to play for that D3 title. And I'll give one more shout out all the way down to D7. My cousin Matt Rizzo coaching Kenosha St. Joe's. I'll be rooting for them as they try to get to Camp Randall for that D7 title. So I'm rooting for Coach Rizzo and the St. Joe's. I don't know what their mascot is, but I'm rooting for them.
We'll just call
it. I mean, that's awesome, Mac. The family ties. Look, I got a couple friends from Waunakee that are going to just watch that game for fun. I mean, obviously, I went there. There's the McCoy Smith connection, but I personally think that could be a special, special game. I really could see either team winning that one. Obviously, Matt Harris does a phenomenal job over at Arrowhead. I kind of wish I was back here around to see that. Really intrigued about that. You mentioned Catholic Memorial, Mac. And then I'll just give a shout to, a couple Wisconsin commits. Actually not just in the state, but Ben Novak and Andrian out in Indiana, where I will be heading. They're playing for the regional championship tonight. So they're getting a little bit, closer, obviously, to kind of that next level. But, Perko, I love that element that we always make sure to hit on. Truly some great football games. I might have to do a little streaming, driving the dark roads through Indiana to follow these games. I know that Max got a busy weekend too, but I'm really excited, guys. It's a great time of year.
It really is, man. I love this time of year, as someone who obviously loves college football, but loves high school football as well. I wish I could be up there in Wisconsin to catch a couple of those. I'll be down here in Tennessee, though. Got a couple buddies who coach here in the Nashville area. Some really good football, obviously being played down here as well. But no matter where you're watching football, whether it's from your couch or heading out to the games, make sure you continue to join us here on the Badger247 show. And make sure you're subscribed to Badger247 for all of that elite coverage that we are getting with the boots on the ground, whether it's in Camp Randall Stadium or wherever Nick is heading on the road. We'll be back again next week with more coverage, breaking down everything that happens. Obviously, Badgers have a big game in Bloomington this weekend against Indiana. Will be a tough one. Indiana is a top 3 team in the country for a reason. But hey, after last weekend, there's more hope than there's been pretty much at any time this season so far right now. So we thank everyone for tuning in here. And until next time, we'll see you on the boards.